Right now, I'm not hearing anything.
Is up on the top of the screen, it said book project is talking like a second ago, but I didn't hear anything.
Yeah, I've been getting just like little blips and stuff from them, but no voices.
Hi,
Yeah.
Toby and John, can you hear me?
Just a little bit.
Okay. Well, I'm Jordan Jefferson. I am so excited to welcome those of you who are able to attend in person and anyone virtually to this LitFest Happy Hour faculty reading. We'll have 6 featured readers tonight, including Paula Younger, Rachel Walker, Susie Q. Smith, John Cotter, Addie Tsai, and Toby Altman. Let's see. You'll find links to any other happy hour functions and upcoming readings in the chat bar if you're online, as well as links to tonight's salon, the Inspiration Tour, which kicks off at 6 p.m. Mountain Time and is free. For any of you here in person, please take phone calls or conversations outside and save questions for the end. We won't have a Q&A, but we're very accessible here, so you're welcome to talk to people afterwards. Grab a refreshment at the bar in the back, and if you're hungry, you can always check in at the info booth outside for a ticket for tonight's catered dinner. If you'd like to purchase any of the books from our readers here tonight, they're sold right over there at Matter's pop-up bookstore. They're our LitFest book-selling partner, and you should be able to stick around and get those signed as well if you'd like. And finally, if you're looking for classes and workshops with space still left, please see the info booth or the link in the chat for our cheat sheet. I'd like to thank the SCFD, National Endowment for the Arts, and Colorado Creative Industries for helping to make LitFest 2022 possible, in addition to York Street Yards for donating this amazing space. And a special thank you to the shop at Matter, our official book-selling partner this year. I'm going to introduce you to our first reader. Paula Younger's writing has appeared in many literary journals, including HarperCollins' 52 Stories anthology, Muddy Backroads, Stories from Off the Beaten Path anthology, Another Chicago Magazine, The Rattling Wall, the Chicago Tribune's Printer Rose Journal, Gay Mag, the Southeast Review, The Manifestation, The Nervous Breakdown, and the Georgetown Review. She earned her MFA from the University of Virginia and received the Henry Hoynes and Bronx Writers Center fellowships. She teaches at Lighthouse Writers Workshop, where she received the Beacon Award for Teaching Excellence. Welcome up, Paula.
Microphone, intimidating. Thank you, Jordan. Hi, lovely audience. So I'm going to just be reading an excerpt from my short story, Drinking the Nile. It was just published last week in another Chicago magazine. Can you hear me or not? Okay, sorry, I was just looking at Bill. So I just decided to kind of pick my favorite big scene, so I'm just going to give you a quick background really quick so you can kind of understand what's happening. And the short stories from Egypt were inspired by my time teaching English at a Coptic Catholic seminary before the revolution in Cairo. So the story is in Egypt, and the main character, Asmahan, is a wealthy woman. Her son died when he was a baby. Now her only living child, her daughter, Mertman, is living in Switzerland, but is going to have her wedding in Egypt. And what Asmahan has been wanting the whole entire story is to buy alcohol for her daughter's wedding, which is not such an easy thing to do in Egypt. Her husband, who is wealthy, is refusing to until she quits her job, and so she's refusing to do that. Characters you need to know are Asmahan, her driver, Mahmoud, he figures in, and then there are 2 American teachers, Susan and Patty. They just arrived, and Asmahan is using them for them to each buy 3 bottles of liquor, so she figures she can give that to her Swiss in-laws, so at least that's good enough. And there's a cheap liquor store called Drinkies that has a very limited selection, so she's going to get the rest from there. So this is the moment of what Asmahan has been wanting. She's finally in the store. Unlike the large, brightly lit airport duty-free shops, the one in Mahdi was smaller, darker, but clean. Rows of lipsticks, makeups, and perfumes gleamed in golden bottles. Plastic designed to look like glass. Fake elegance. Asmahan stepped across the entrance, leaving Cairo behind and entering international unoccupied space. She turned to look back for Mahmoud. He hunkered in the entrance and gave a slight nod. She hated that it comforted her. Susan looked around the store. This place is great. Beckoned by the Bombay Sapphire's Mediterranean blue, Asmahan walked to the liquor section. She touched the elegant gins, the Brookers with the distinguished men in sharp business suits. She caressed the Belle de Brulette, flavored cognac in the shape of a pear, rounded like a woman's body. The different liqueurs sounded like poetry: grappa, schnapps, brandy. The flavors and colors were better than what was found in nature: strawberry cream, tropical pineapple, watermelon pucker. The margarita bottles looked like they drunk the sun, so much brighter and better than Drinky's cramped offerings. Patty said we should buy some wine. We could drink it after dinner on the roof. Susan gave an enthusiastic yes, but Asmahan said, please just go to Drinky's. Their wine will suffice. We will have 300 guests. 6 bottles won't be enough anyway, Patty said as she compared wines. It's better than 5. Mahmoud will take you to Drinky's after. You'll want to know where it is anyway. Asmahan picked 2 Bombay Sapphires with the elegant queen, 1 grappa, 1 golden Bavarian single malt whiskey, and 2 emerald green Brinson Dorknot schnapps. Asmahan gave Susan 3 bottles and handed her the correct amount of money, with a little extra, just in case. Susan walked to the register with the bottles, but Patty explored. Susan, they have sunblock here, SPF 50. Patty held up 2 lip glosses, different shades of red. Which one do you like best, she asked. Asmahan pointed to the darker one, although both colors would make Patty's lips look too thin. Asmahan set the Bombay Sapphires and whiskey by Patty's feet. Please just go to the cashier, she said. Patty glanced at Asmahan. In just a minute. Susan paid and asked the cashier how far away the National Museum was. Asmahan looked for Patty, nowhere in view, probably deep in another aisle, still shopping. Asmahan grabbed Susan's bag and walked away from Susan and her numerous questions about directions and sightseeing. Patty would just have to follow. Asmahan turned to exit when a security guard cornered her. He was a boy, really, younger than her son would have been. The guard had hopeful stubble on his chest, on his face, and a semi-automatic slung across his chest. He looked inside the bag at the bottles. This is too much for such a little woman. This is for a private party. He was probably some low level from Upper Egypt, not educated beyond primary, but his uncle knew someone, so he got to act like a big man. Would you like to be my friend? He asked. Asman stood straighter. Please, I'm a mother. I have 3 sons. He smiled, showing large dimples. Why would they leave their mother unprotected, shopping alone? They're in Europe. Good boys don't leave their mothers. How do you know what good sons do? The other guard smiled, nudged his chin at the guard blocking her way. Asmahan looked back for Susan and Patty. The corner hid them. My friends will be here any moment. Westerners take their time. The guard seized the bag. The bottles clanked. Those aren't yours, Asmahan said. The store isn't for Egyptians, not even fancy ones who associate with Kuagwa, he said. Asmahan reached for the bag. He shoved her against the wall. The bottles pressed into her ribs. He pushed his hand against her mouth as she started to scream. He licked her ear and spoke into her neck. I want to taste the alcohol sliding down your breasts. Goosebumps rose in her arms. I know you like that, he said. She pushed back, but a semi-automatic pressed into her stomach. Oh, Habibti, don't push me away, he said. How could someone so young and puny take up so much space? Asman heard Susan say, you can't treat customers like this. He stepped back, tearing the bag. Asmahan gripped the bottles. The guard turned to Susan. Are you enjoying your visit? He grabbed her navy blue passport with the gold eagle from her hand. Welcome to Egypt, he said. I have a copy, Susan said, glancing at a semi-automatic. Patty, she yelled. Patty walked around the corner, still holding the glasses, her lips 2 different shades of red. What's going on? Are you looking for an Egyptian husband? He stroked Patty's waist with Susan's passport. Give her back her ID, Patty said. But her voice was small. Her 2 red lips looked cartoonish. Mahmoud thundered in. Asmahan's normally slouched driver stood upright like a full-sized bear. He pushed the guard against the wall. Shame on you, you donkey's ass, Mahmoud spoke loudly and wagged his finger. Disrespecting a lady and our guests? May God destroy your house and the house of those who gave birth to you. Your mind is as low and dirty as a shoe. Mahmoud grabbed Susan's passport and the bottles. He led Asmahan outside. Patty and Susan followed. The sunlight stunned Asmahan. Mahmoud set the bottles in the trunk and then helped Asmahan into the car. His skin was leathery with small pits, his eyes gray and kind. Susan sat next to Asmahan in the back of the car, too close. She patted Asmahan's knee. Are you okay? She asked. Patty held up the lip glosses. I didn't pay for these. I'll be right back. Mahmoud kept the driver partition down and blasted air conditioning. Asmahan wrapped her arms around herself, trying to generate some heat. Susan asked him about visiting the pyramids, his favorite place for a camel ride. Asmahan looked out the window at the dusty, dirty street. Unlike Cairo's steep sidewalks, Switzerland's were low. Pedestrians didn't fear drivers hitting them. In Switzerland, Asmahan's lungs eased. Everything was so clean and orderly it made her nervous. Her daughter was probably walking to a cafe, maybe a theater. Mertiman blended with the crowds in her dark clothing and minimal but attractive makeup. No one knew that her ancestors had temples built to honor them. They might not even know she was an immigrant with her polished Swiss-German accent. Nothing about Mertiman was out of step, as if she followed instructions from a magazine. So I'm going to stop there, but if you want to read the whole thing, it's online, another Chicago magazine, and it's Drinking the Nile. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Paula. That was fantastic. Next up, I'm going to welcome Susie Q. Smith, who is an award-winning artist, organizer, and educator living in Denver, Colorado. She's created, curated, coached, and taught in Denver for over 20 years, managing the largest poetry festivals that Denver has seen to date. The author of poetry collections Poems for the End of the World, A Gospel of Bones, and 13 Descansos, Susie is also a singer-songwriter, playwright, and multidisciplinary creative. Currently, she is affiliate faculty with Regis University's Mile High MFA, Lighthouse Writers Workshop, and DU's Prison Arts Initiative, as well as the Margins Conference Director for The Word. Susie, welcome up.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to do my best to speak directly into the mic. Can you hear me okay? Okay, delightful. So normally I write poetry, but today I'm going to read from a recently finished memoir. And I'm going to skip that one, actually. I'm going to keep it tight. So the year is 1992. Jenny's in the Shakespeare Festival, and she has to dress up and recite a sonnet that she memorized. It sounds terrible to me, but Jenny likes acting and being on stages. She's even in the show choir. I hate having people look at me, but I'm glad the whole 8th grade gets to go to the Shakespeare Festival because we get to take a field trip downtown. I love going downtown. Some of the buildings are tall enough to block out the sun, and it feels like we're in New York or something. Ladies in business clothes and stockings are always rushing around on their lunch breaks wearing sneakers instead of the high heels they probably left at their desks. Everyone looks serious, like they're in a hurry and smoking cigarettes and thinking about something important. I can't wait to be a grown-up and wear suits and rush to get back from lunch and use a typewriter and feel like I got something important to do. Me and Jenny are watching all the people on 16th Street Mall laughing about ways that we can embarrass them and waiting for it to be her turn to get on stage to say her sonnet when Miss D says, "Everyone back on the bus now." And Miss D is no one to play with. Most of us think she's one wrong move from fighting a kid and winning, so we line up and get back on the bus. Her face looks different from her usual mien. She looks scared. When she's finished counting us all for the second time, the bus takes off and Miss D stands at the front of the bus by the driver. What happened? Why are we leaving? I didn't even get to do my scene. We barely even got off the bus. This field trip janky like everything else at our school. Why we gotta go? Everyone, be silent. The other teachers might be screaming at us by now, but Miss D only has to tell us once. Something happened today. You all know about Rodney King, the man in Los Angeles. My stomach is turning. We've all seen it on the news, Rodney King being beaten over and over by the police. I watched it with Nana, and we both sat on the couch, curled into each other, and cried. They do this sometimes, Nana says, especially to Black people. Nana and Aunt Jenny talk about when she comes over, when they remember stories together, and people they used to know, and what happened to them when police got involved. We never call police on people we love, even when they're acting crazy. They calm down after a while, and we know how to sneak out of windows and back doors in the meantime. Nothing is worth this kind of beating. Nothing. Yes, Miss D, we answer. We know about Rodney King. Today, the jury found the officers. She pauses. If I thought Ms. D could cry, I would have thought she was about to right now. The jury found the officers not guilty. The bus is howling. We are rageful, screaming. How? How dare they? We all saw it. How did that happen? What is wrong with them? They have to do another trial. This is messed up. How? Even the white kids are yelling about it not being fair. They mean it too, but it's not the same. Rodney King doesn't look like anyone they love. So they're mad, but not as mad as the rest of us. We're mad and scared, like it could be us or our uncles or our brothers or our fathers next time, or maybe it was last time. Ms. D continues. This news led to a lot of reactions, and that's why we had to leave the Shakespeare Festival. Someone called in a bomb threat, and all of downtown had to be evacuated. Do you all know the word evacuated? What that means? It means that every person in every building has to leave and get to a safe place. No one knows if it's real or not, but we have to keep you all safe. We have to do our best to keep you safe. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that, Susie. Next, we have Rachel Walker, who is a Boulder-based writer with more than 20 years of journalism experience that includes daily news reporting, magazine editing, and freelance writing. Her reported features, book reviews, and travel writing have been published in the Washington Post, Outside, Los Angeles Review of Books, 5280, and others. She also writes fiction and creative nonfiction and received her MFA in fiction from the Bennington Writing Seminars. A former McDowell Fellow, Rachel has written a memoir and is currently at work on her debut novel. Welcome up, Rachel.
That was amazing, both of you, Paula and Susie. I was going to say Tori. I'm disorganized, and I'm reading off my computer because I live in Boulder, and I left my printed pages on my printer in Boulder. This is the prologue, I think. It's the beginning of my novel that is a work in progress, and has the working title of Ride the Sky Down. When Tally Wolf was 12 years old, her father made her choose between her sister and a summit. They were at treeline, all tired. Just at the edge of the stunted forest, the trees gnarled and determined, Paige plopped down onto a log, folded her arms over her knees, and dropped her head there to rest. Papa turned his back to them, but not before Tally caught the roll of his eyes, his nose twitching to fight the sneer she had seen many times before. 16-year-old girls, which is what Paige was, were not supposed to be timid way up here in the mountains. She should be more like her little sister Tally, who wanted more than anything to be high in the alpine, where the oxygen was thin and the world had more sky than ground. Tally bit her lower lip and wiggled next to Paige on the log. We're almost there. Paige didn't look up. I have a bad feeling. About what? I don't know, like something bad is going to happen. Papa squinted at the sky, which had gone from overcast to a dark gray. In the distance were even darker clouds. A breeze blew the duff from the forest floor into a spindrift, and Tally shivered. It's fine, Papa said. Paige lifted her head. She had gone pale, her hair had come undone. Tally leaned against her and looked up and saw that Paige's eyes were watery. What are you crying about? Just take it easy, Papa said. We'll be fine. I want to turn around, said Paige. Are you scared of falling? Tally asked. Paige pushed her away with a nudge of a hip. We can come back another day. Tally began to protest, and Paige snapped, I said I don't want to keep going. Not today, Paige, Papa said in a warning voice. It would be great for you if we died, wouldn't it? Paige said. Then you could climb wherever you wanted, whenever you wanted. Tally laughed, nervous and high. She could feel the beat of her heart all the way into her throat. Papa knelt down, picked up Paige's pack, and handed it to her. Then we'll see you back at the trailhead. Tally gasped. His rules for the mountains were simple. Stay hydrated, eat enough, and never split up. You can't leave me. We won't, Tally promised. Papa grunted. We're not. You're making a choice. Now we need to get up there. He gestured with his chin toward the bald and sharp summit of Mount Willans, which loomed over them like a steep, inverted shield, before a storm blows in. What if I get lost? Stay on the trail, unlocked. Tally tried to catch Paige's eye, tried to mouth the words, "Just stay, please stay." But Paige fixated on their father. "Your choice," he said quietly. "Fine." Paige stood with a grim resignation. "Wait." Tally lunged for Paige and clenched her sister's hand. "This is hard, but you can totally do it." Paige had begun to shake. Oh, Paige. She made things so much more difficult than they had to be. Tally wished she could cut her sister's brain off from her body. Paige thought too much. The day had started without trouble. They woke before sunrise and ate a quiet breakfast of oatmeal and nuts. A half hour later, the three drove out of town as the sunrise illuminated the mountains that ringed Opal, a high-altitude village so far away from the rest of Colorado that it felt like its own country. Past the town's bullet-riddled sign, the paved road turned to dirt. They drove past the climax mine. Beyond its tall chain-link fence topped with barbed wire was a massive concrete building whose fluorescent lights never went off. They drove past the ghost town of Elmer and the rotting remnants of the wooden shafts that went deep into the sides of the mountain. Then they turned onto a Forest Service road that switched back up a narrow valley until it reached a natural bench and the land opened up. The road grew rough and Papa slowed his speed to keep from breaking an axle. The forest thickened. The sweet smell of dry pine needles and early wildflowers blew through the open windows. They drove past a female moose and her calf grazing among the trees. The calf snapped its head to watch while the mother nibbled the lush grasses, indifferent to their presence. At the trailhead, Tally and Paige double-knotted the red laces on the leather boots that Papa had custom ordered from a company in New Hampshire. Sunscreen, and then they signed in at the register. Tally filled her lungs with the cool morning air and took off up the trail, her long legs moving of their own accord. The sky was enormous and clear. The meadows popped with red and yellow wildflowers. Papa didn't hike so much as impose himself on the landscape. The trail widened in his presence. The rocks made themselves smaller. The dense ponderosa forest opened into a grove of aspen. Then the aspen gave way to stands of Engelmann and lodgepole pine. The ground tilted upward, and through gaps in the trees, Tally saw the slate-colored talus slopes, treeless moraine, and walls of rock above. They came to the place where the trees stopped and the moraine began. That's when Paige refused to continue, and Papa ordered her back to the truck. When Paige finally looked at Tally and pleaded, "Come back with me." When Papa turned his back and began to hike up the trail. As formative events go, nothing else comes close. Not the death of her mother when she was 4, or the many months in Tally's childhood when Papa left her and Paige with Uncle Buddy and Aunt Sarah on the ranch while he climbed big mountains all over the world, or anything that happened after that morning on Willens Peak. Everything in Tally's life has come, in one way or another, out of that moment under a shuddering sky when she untangled her hand from her sister's, blocked out Paige's anguished pleas, and ran on spindly legs up the trail after her dad.
Thank you, Rachel. Unfortunately, John and Addie will not be able to join us this evening, but I am really excited to welcome our final reader of the evening, Toby Altman, who is joining us remotely, is the author of 2 books, Discipline Park and Arcadia, Indiana. He held a 2021 Fellowship in Poetry from the National Endowment for the Arts. He's received residencies from the Vermont Studio Center, the Malay Colony for the Arts, and MacDowell, where he was the 2020 Stephanie and Robert Olmsted Fellow. His poems can be found in Gulf Coast, Jubilat, Lana Turner, and other journals and anthologies. His articles and essays can or will be found in Contemporary Literature, English Literature History, and Jacket 2. He holds an MFA in Poetry from the Iowa Writers Workshop and a PhD in English from Northwestern University. Welcome, Toby.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for welcoming me remotely into this great reading. What a pleasure to read with all these wonderful Lighthouse faculty whose work and teaching I really admire. I'm coming to you from Yorkshire in England tonight, where I'm visiting some family, and it's nice to see a little peek of Denver on the live stream. I'm going to read a couple of poems from my new book, Discipline Park, which is coming out in October from Wendy's Subway. This is a book about the demolition of Prentice Women's Hospital in Chicago. It was a building designed by Bertrand Goldberg, who's famous for those like corncob towers that you can see on the river in Chicago. I was born at Prentice Women's Hospital, and it was demolished by Northwestern in 2013 while I was a student there. So the book is a kind of meditation on the complexity of the relationship that we all have to institutions under neoliberalism. I depended on Northwestern to pay my rent and buy my groceries, and at the same time, it was destroying the kind of material connections I had to the landscape that I cared about and the place that I come from. And the book kind of goes from there into an investigation of Goldberg as a figure. He's a really interesting and weird guy, and sort of broader thinking about, capitalism and stuff, man. So I'll read 2 poems from the book. I want to write an essay on scarcity, to describe the city as an effect of deletion or decay, a shadow, a graveyard, a series of imaginary islands. I would begin, for instance, with the graves in Lincoln Park. I would say how the park was stripped of its corpses to make it clean and safe, a place where money stays. Or I would write about Daniel Burnham, who asked the city to build a harp of garbage in the lake. Who has time for that? I too live on trash. A woman's face with an orange price tag on it, $7.99. A book of coupons, wild onion collapsing in the throat. And what if the meek refuse to inherit? I want to write about the city as extension, delay, a limb that buds from the body of the police, to argue that architecture transforms sound into substance. I would say, we are all sheltered in suffering noise. I want to ask, as elegantly as possible, in what does human life consist? And I would give a savage answer. It is a travel wound which inflicts itself on the landscape. As a child, I was taught to draw an object by fleshing the dark around it. In this way, I learned to think of the body as a luminous institution, an unmarked space where money travels. I want to ask, is a world without scarcity still a world? And then refuse to answer. And then here's the second poem. None of these are titled. The institution asks you to teach a class called How to Be Lonely. Funny you should ask. You stand in front of your students dressed in your best pants and offer them 8 lessons in loneliness. In the first lesson, you confess you feel no desire to renew life. You prize the dead, the minute action of their pens. By the second lesson, you have no students left. Should you continue? The institution does not answer your repeated emails. You present your second lesson to an empty room. In the second lesson, you described a statue of Ceres atop the Board of Trade. She hangs above your city, swoon of silver, and she sings. Translated into the language of the living, her song is sweetness of commerce or information. Suffused with libido, as if she wished to caress the stocks exchanged beneath her. You try to reproduce her song for the class. All my life, longing to be a wife, you sing. Your voice is like bruised glass. After the second lesson, the institution politely asks you to refrain. You refuse to refrain. For the third lesson, you take your class on a field trip to a slaughterhouse. How does it feel to be in the presence of this building? You ask an empty school bus. Frankly, okay. You read from the guidebook. The building got its form entirely from the functional requirements of movement of cattle and the evisceration process. As though compelled by the frenzy of the slaughter, you begin to dance. Your arms and legs resemble a prison in their intricate locking and unlocking. Now you are always dancing. Thanks.
Well, that concludes our happy hour reading for today. Thank you again to Toby, Paula, Rachel, and Susie for joining us. Please stick around. At 6 p.m. we have our Inspiration Tour Salon starting, and you're welcome to grab a drink from the bar in the back or a book at Matter. We also have 4 more tickets for catered dinner tonight. So if you're getting hungry, please see the info booth to buy some of those. Thank you.